Beneath the cold northern sky, far from the comforts of Greenland, a Viking longship battles through the waves. At its helm is Leif Erikson, a man whose name will be carved into legend. With only 35 men, he's about to set foot on a land no European has ever seen. Vinland. Leif Erikson was no ordinary Viking. As the son of Eric the Red, the founder of Greenland, he was born to explore the edges of the known world. He grew up in a harsh yet determined society where survival depended on courage, strength, and the ability to adapt to the environment. From a young age, Leif had heard stories of uncharted lands, vast oceans, and dangerous adventures, and now he sought to carve his own place in this legacy, a new land, one whispered of in the tales of a lost sailor, Bjarni. But Leif was not content to simply hear of this land. He had to discover it for himself. In the year 1000 AD, Leif gathered a crew of seasoned sailors, 35 men hardened by the unforgiving North Atlantic. Their longship, a sleek and sturdy marvel of Viking engineering, was built for speed and endurance. With its shallow draft, the ship could navigate both the open ocean and inland rivers, giving the Vikings a unique advantage in exploration. Armed with their knowledge of the stars, the sun's path, and the natural signs of the sea, Leif and his men prepared for a journey into the unknown. For the Norsemen, exploration was more than just survival. It was a way of life. They had a saying, "Better to die with honor than live in shame." This spirit of discovery had led them across Europe, Iceland, Greenland, and now toward a land no Viking had ever set foot on. The journey was brutal. The North Atlantic showed no mercy. Storm after storm battered Leif's ship, and freezing winds cut through the men's furs. The Viking longship, with its open deck, left the crew exposed to the elements. Yet these Norsemen were masters of the sea, their bodies hardened by the cold, their minds sharpened by years of navigating treacherous waters. They pressed on, driven by the promise of what lay beyond the horizon. At times, the men would have questioned the wisdom of their journey. Days passed without sight of land, and food supplies dwindled. But Leif's leadership was firm. He reassured his men, knowing that courage and determination were their greatest weapons against the unknown. Finally, their efforts were rewarded. Land appeared on the horizon. Helluland, as Leif called it, meaning land of flat stones. Today, we know it as Baffin Island, but this rocky, barren land was not fit for settlement. The cold winds howled across its empty landscape, and the crew found little to sustain them. Undeterred, Leif and his crew sailed southward, where they found Markland, land of forests, now believed to be Labrador. It was a stark contrast to Helluland. Dense forests stretched as far as the eye could see, a welcome sight for men from Greenland, where timber was scarce. They gathered as much wood as their ship could carry, knowing how valuable it would be back home. But still, this was not the land of promise Leif had imagined, so they pressed on, further into the unknown. After weeks at sea, they finally reached their destination, Vinland, the land of wild grapes. Today, we believe this to be modern-day Newfoundland. Here, the land was fertile, with rolling hills, rivers teeming with fish, and forests full of game. For the first time, the Norsemen felt they had found a land worth settling. Leif and his men wasted no time. They built a settlement at what is now known as Lance aux Meadows, the first European outpost in North America. For a time, they thrived in Vinland, harvesting grapes, hunting animals, and gathering timber. This land, so different from the harsh landscape of Greenland, seemed like paradise. But the Vikings were not the only inhabitants of this new world. From the forest, the native inhabitants, whom the Norse called Skrælings, watched the newcomers. These people, likely the ancestors of the Beithuk, had lived in these lands for generations, their lives intricately connected to the environment around them. To the Skrælings, the land was sacred, a source of sustenance and the center of their way of life. The sudden arrival of these strange, metal-clad men from across the sea must have been met with confusion and perhaps even fear. For the Skrælings, survival was a delicate balance dictated by nature's rhythms. Their oral histories spoke of respect for the land and each other. The arrival of the Norse, with their desire to claim land and resources, threatened this balance. The Skrælings likely viewed the Vikings not just as traders, but as intruders, encroaching on their sacred territory. At first, there was curiosity. The Skrælings approached cautiously, and the Norse, eager to establish peaceful relations, offered goods, iron tools, red cloth, and milk. But the Skrælings, unfamiliar with some of these items, especially dairy products, found them unsettling. Milk, which was a staple for the Vikings, caused discomfort among the Skrælings, leading to suspicion. What began as peaceful exchanges soon turned into tension-filled encounters. As misunderstandings grew, so did the mistrust. One fateful day, a minor dispute escalated. A Viking, fearing an ambush, struck first, killing a Skræling. The peaceful exchange quickly spiraled into violence. Though the Norse were fierce warriors, they were vastly outnumbered. The Skrælings knew the land, the terrain, and had the advantage of numbers. Leif Erikson, realizing the danger, knew that staying in Vinland could lead to the deaths of his men. Leif Erikson faced a difficult choice. Vinland was everything he had hoped for, rich in resources, a land that could sustain his people for generations. But the Skrælings posed a threat too great to ignore. Leif knew that the cost of staying could be their lives. After spending a year or two in Vinland, he made the decision to abandon the settlement. The dream of a new Viking colony in this land would have to wait. But what if things had gone differently? What if the Norse and the Skrælings had found a way to coexist? In an alternate timeline, the Vikings could have shared their shipbuilding techniques and ironwork with the Skrælings, while learning from the natives' deep understanding of the land. Together, they might have forged an alliance, creating a prosperous colony that combined the best of both worlds. What could this combined society have looked like? Could it have changed the course of history, altering the future of North America? Leif Erikson's return to Greenland sparked interest among other explorers. His brother, Thorvald Erikson, and later the adventurer Thorfinn Karlsefni, would lead their own expeditions to Vinland. But like Leif, they too faced resistance from the Skrælings. Thorvald was fatally wounded by an arrow, and Karlsefni's attempt to establish a permanent settlement failed after conflict with the natives. For centuries, the story of Leif Erikson's journey remained a legend. But in the 1960s, archaeologists discovered the remains of a Viking settlement at Lance aux Meadows, proving that Leif and his men had indeed been the first Europeans to set foot in North America. 500 years before Christopher Columbus, Leif Erikson's discovery of Vinland may not have led to a lasting colony, but his journey left an enduring legacy. His story remains a testament to the Vikings' exploration of a world far beyond their own, a world that was already home to the Native Americans, who shaped their own rich histories. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more historical explorations. And let us know in the comments, what do you think might have happened if the Vikings and Native Americans had formed an alliance? Or